Welcome to Mid-Level Adventurers, a podcast where non-experts talk about the things they love. I'm Jarrod Jehoda, and with me for this first series is my co-host Matt Morris.
Hello everyone, it's Matt Morris.
Dungeons & Dragons is the seminal tabletop RPG, and throughout each edition, the publisher, currently Wizards of the Coast, has printed supplemental books that include more resources to be used by players and dungeon masters within the game. Last time, on Mid-Level Adventurers, Matt and I began a discussion about the latest sourcebook, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Join us as we keep the cauldron simmering, and let's dive right back into our discussion concerning optional class features.
So, picking up where we left off last time, I think next on my list has got to be, it's a druid feature, Wild Companion.
Ah, yeah.
I think I've been waiting for something like this in D&D for a while. You gain the ability to summon a spirit that assumes an animal form. As an action, you can expend the use of your wild shape feature to cast the Find Familiar spell without material components.
Yep.
And the familiar disappears after a number of hours equal to half your druid level. That's pretty cool if you want a little animal friend.
Yeah, you can summon a little animal and it acts as a familiar would. That's the intent, I believe.
That sounds like it to me. And you do have to sacrifice the use of your wild shape, but unless you're a Circle of the Moon druid, perhaps you're not as focused on wild shape, or perhaps the situation just doesn't call for it. I don't know. Whatever reason, maybe you still want to be you and cast spells, and now you got a little familiar. So it's not going to waste.
You can cast touch spells through a familiar. So if you've got a little rat running around, you can inflict wounds on somebody with the rat.
Exactly. It's really like you just extended your range.
It is a good feature if you want to play a druid.
I have a soft spot for druids.
Yeah, druids often get maligned a lot, but I think they are actually extremely versatile and a lot of fun, and they get really powerful.
Yeah. When you get high-end druid, man, oh gosh. Anyway. So, what's your number 3?
Well, actually, my number 3 was your number 1, Harness Divine Power.
Ah, that's funny.
Yeah, I think it's great because both clerics and paladins get it.
That's right, yeah. It makes a lot of sense.
If I was going to throw out an honorable mention, I think it would probably be the Rogue's Steady Aim feature.
Okay.
Which allows them to use their bonus action to give them advantage on their next attack in the same turn.
Ooh, that's cool.
A lot of rogues will use their bonus action to disengage or to hide, but they're hiding in order to gain advantage. So now they don't have to worry about, oh, I can't hide in the middle of this open floor plan. I can just use my bonus action to aim and give myself advantage on this knife throw.
That's really cool, actually. It's kind of like when the rogue is backed into a corner, they see no other options. They focus in. Boom.
It's a really great feature for rogues.
That is pretty cool.
I'm a big fan of that, too.
I got one more tiny honorable mention just because I think it plays so well with something we've already mentioned in the subclasses.
Yeah.
Barbarian has an optional feature called Instinctive Pounce. It lets you move up to half of your movement speed as a bonus action when you enter your rage.
It pretty much gives you half a dash while entering your rage at the same time.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. You're approaching monk levels of movement speed there.
Yeah, because barbarians get additional speed as they level up, so
yeah,
that increases really quickly.
It's pretty cool.
And that's just our highlights. There are many, many more optional features that are really great in this book.
Oh, absolutely.
Beyond optional features, we get to talk about new feats. I love a good feat.
Or two.
Or two. These new feats in this book are fantastic.
I think so. There are some that are just really creative, I think.
Yeah, they gave us 15 new ones.
Yeah. And there's some that I would dare say are must-haves for certain classes.
What are some of your favorites?
Okay, so this one may seem a little mundane, but I think that Slasher was pretty cool if you're playing a fighter in a martial class. So you can increase your strength or dexterity by 1 to a maximum of 20.
Yep.
Once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack that deals slashing damage, you can reduce the speed of the target by 10 feet until the start of your next turn.
Which is cool.
That is cool, and I don't think anything really does anything like that. I also think it's interesting to note it just says slashing damage. It doesn't specify a weapon. So I suppose if there's another way to do slashing damage...
Claws do slashing damage.
There you go.
So if you're a primal beast, you take slasher, use your claws.
Yep.
Also, battle axes, long swords. I believe whips also do slashing damage.
Yeah, that's cool. Here's the big thing, though, I think. When you score a critical hit that deals slashing damage to a creature you grievously wounded until the start of your next turn, the target has disadvantage on all attacks. That's situational, I guess, because you don't always get a critical hit, but like when it happens, that could be pretty huge. It's really good. I think that's a strong one.
It absolutely is. I agree. It's one of the ones that I actually really like too. A theme that a lot of these new feats from Tasha's has is that they allow characters to dip their toes into other classes or professions.
Oh yeah, very true.
Feats like the Metamagic Adept, or the Artificer Initiate, or the Chef.
Yeah, Chef.
And I really like a lot of these feats, especially stuff like the Slasher, the Piercer, the Crusher, because if you specialize in dealing a certain type of damage, then those feats really give you some extra oomph. The other kind of cool thing that they introduce in these feats are they introduce telepathic and telekinetic abilities in this book.
Yes.
Not only with the Cyanide, but with the two feats, telekinetic and telepathic.
Yes.
Which gives any character, regardless of class or whatever, mental powers. Which is really cool. But I think my favorite feat, beyond all the others, is Shadow Touched.
Oh, yeah.
So Shadow Touched lets you increase a mental stat by 1 to a max of 20. So that's Wisdom, Intelligence, or Charisma. You learn the Invisibility spell automatically. And you get another level 1 Necromancy or Illusion spell of your choice. And you can cast either one without a spell slot once per long rest. Or if you have a class that grants you spell levels, you can use your spell levels to cast them.
That's pretty cool.
The only thing is, whichever ability you increase is the ability you use to cast the spell.
Being able to be invisible is really awesome.
And getting another spell on top of that.
Exactly.
So you get 2 free spells out of the feat, which is pretty cool.
That is cool. That's kind of huge. I think another one on my list that I think goes right along beside that, but I thought Fey Touched was pretty cool.
Yeah, Fey Touched is cool. It's pretty much the same thing, except instead of getting influenced by the Shadowfell or Dark Twisted powers, you get influenced by the Feywild. Right.
So basically, instead of being invisible, you get to Misty Step, which is cool. Misty Step, basically, it allows you to teleport up to 30 feet into an unoccupied space that you can see.
And it's a bonus action.
And it is a bonus action. So I think that's pretty awesome. I've been a little jealous of the times that Misty Step has been used by my party members.
But yeah, you also get a first level spell from Fey Touched as well.
You get a first level spell, must be from Divination or Enchantment School of Magic. But you can cast those spells without expending a spell slot. Once you cast either one of these spells in any way, you cannot cast that spell again until you finish a long rest, however.
Yep.
But you can also cast those spells using a spell slot. So really, you only get the freebie once per long rest.
But you, again, gain 2 additional spells. If you can already cast spells, it adds to your arsenal.
Right. There are some really cool magic-specific ones. Telekinetic and telepathic, also very cool and kind of like never before seen. I think telekinetic gets special mention because you get to learn the Mage Hand cantrip, which is just fun. But there are some other, we've mentioned a few, there's some other martial-specific ones that are really cool. I think another one that maybe deserves a mention might be Crusher.
Yeah, it's all about those people who want to do bludgeoning damage.
Well, in addition to increasing your strength or constitution by 1, once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack that deals bludgeoning damage, you can move it 5 feet to an unoccupied space, provided the target is no more than 1 size larger than you.
Yep, which is also good for those monks who are beating people up with their fists.
With their fists? Yeah, you're right. When you score a critical hit that deals bludgeoning damage, attack rolls against the creature are made with advantage. So it's similar to Slasher, but now you're giving advantage to the rest of your party members.
Yeah, the feats in this book are all of a similar theme. They're all aimed at giving characters new options. I feel like in the past, some feats have been very focused in what they want to do. I feel these feats really open up possibilities, which is great, and I think that's what feats should do.
I agree.
They should make you more versatile as you are becoming an expert in your chosen adventuring path.
Yeah. I think versatility can really describe a lot of what Tasha's has to offer.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
I love that some of these feats give you an ability score increase, they give you something, and they give your party something.
That's true. But we don't only get new feats in Tasha's, we get new spells.
Of course.
So I think the highlight of the new spells that they've released are the summon spells.
Oh, yes.
I think they are so much better for a DM than Conjure Animals because with Conjure Animals, it gives you this wide range. You can have 1 CR2 creature or 2 CR1 creatures or 8 CR 1/4 creatures. All these combinations. which means the Dungeon Master has to know what all these creatures are and what's available at any given time. It throws way too much extra stress on the DM, and I hate that spell only because of that reason. I think it's a great spell to use, I get why people like it, but as a DM, I hate it, which is why I love these new summon spells. These summon spells provide you with a stat block for the summoned creature, and I love it. They are the best thing ever.
They're really good. They're really cool. If you're thinking about picking that spell or using that spell, it has a range of 90 feet, so that's pretty cool. You can put that guy pretty much anywhere you want on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Within reason. I think a lot of these spells, I haven't played a lot of heavy spellcasters in the past, but these are really cool options to pursue when I'm looking for that next character. One that kind of stood out to me is actually branded. It's Tasha's Mind Whip. That one sounded pretty cool. We talked a lot about the psi abilities that Tasha's includes, and this is right there. It's a 2nd level enchantment spell. It has a range of up to 90 feet, and it lets you psychically strike out at a creature that you can see within 90 feet. They must make an intelligence saving throw, or they suffer 3d6 psychic damage.
And they lose their reaction.
Additionally, it also forces the creature to decide whether to use its next turn to move, take an action, or use a bonus action. Can only do one.
Which is really cool. It's really great to have a spell that not only does damage, but restricts an opponent's options on their next turn.
It seems really powerful for a 2nd level spell.
Well, I think the balance of it is that if they save, they only take half damage and get none of the other effects.
Yes, you're right. That's fair. That's fair. And intelligence saving throws are usually pretty safe, I'd say.
Intelligence saving throws are pretty rare, kind of in general. Only wizards tend to really ace them a lot, possibly some divine casters, but it's usually wizards are the ones you have to worry about with those. But your average, Noel, probably not going to have a great intelligence saving throw.
Yeah.
But what I really love is the section on customizing spells that's in the book.
Yeah.
It really helps people figure out how to make their spells their own. It's all cosmetic, but it's fun. So whatever theme you have for your character, you can use it to flavor your spells. If you have a spellcaster who loves dogs, maybe your fireball takes the shape of a fiery little chihuahua that runs to the targeted spot and then explodes.
Yeah.
You can do that. And this section in the book talks about that kind of stuff. Because I always do that. I ask my players, what does your spell look like?
Exactly. I think that's like a point that Tasha's does make. There are a lot of things that I think are printed now that were probably already house rules, which is fine because it just makes it more official now and perhaps gives some DMs ideas for things maybe they weren't already implementing. I think the customization of that is a great example.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What I really want to talk about is the sections of the book about patrons, sidekicks, and puzzles. Because patrons typically are, oh, I'm a warlock, I have a patron, they're my magic sugar daddy, give me your power. This book talks about patrons who are individuals or organizations that can provide your party with assistance, perks, cash in exchange for your group performing jobs and tasks for them. It's a pretty straightforward concept, it's not groundbreaking, but what there are is a list of different types of patrons presented in this section, like an academy, so like a wizard's college, ancient beings, crime syndicates, guilds, military forces, sovereigns.
Yeah.
And each kind of patron provides different themes and rewards and quests. It's really very interesting. So I really like that there are some concrete examples of, hey, here are things that a patron can do for an adventuring party. Because I always like the idea of being like, hey, I want to sponsor you kids, but I need you to do some stuff for me too. And let's be honest, if you are a powerful crime syndicate, you're going to want a bunch of strong adventurers on your side, whether they know you're a crime syndicate or not.
So much so that you might in fact seek them out once you catch wind of them.
Yeah. And as far as puzzles go, I think they're always cool. I appreciate a good puzzle in a game. Giving them out to my players as a DM and watching them solve it, I'm so proud of my players when they solve the puzzle. It's just really cool. It's like, oh, I'm proud papa kind of deal.
Yeah.
But even when I'm a player, working through the puzzle and figuring it out gives me such a sense of achievement and accomplishment. Even more than, slaying the bad guy, I would say at times.
Yeah, that's fair.
This section talks about how to use puzzles and what sort of hints it might provide to allow them to figure it out. And it offers advice to DMs on how to both use puzzles and facilitate running them.
Now, I do have to say I would be very interested to get your feedback once you've maybe implemented some of these practices or tried to run some of these guides. I have heard mixed reviews about this section.
Mm-hmm.
I think the idea is very cool, but I'd be interested to get your opinion after you've maybe tried some of these out.
I would never try any of the puzzles that they give as an example.
Right.
Because they do offer like, hey, here's 12 example puzzles. They're a great example, but I wouldn't use them because they're available and everybody would know them.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it inspires you to think about, okay, here's an example. How do I improve it? How do I make it trickier? How do I adjust it to my campaign?
And that's a good takeaway.
That's why I like the section. Not necessarily because of the information it gives me and the examples it presents, but because it encourages me to think about puzzles differently.
Yeah, that's a good takeaway.
But I really think that the highlight of this section is sidekicks.
Yeah, this sounds like a really cool concept.
Yeah, so sidekicks are a great kind of legacy option for your game. In previous editions, sidekicks and hirelings were very popular, and they were honestly kind of a must because the game was so deadly. It gave you the option to sort of take over a hireling and make that hireling your new character if yours died in the dungeon. But it's 5th edition now, baby, so time to rethink all of that mentality.
Yeah.
The sidekicks and Tashas are pretty much NPC options that you can gain in your game if the DM allows it. They can provide a missing skill for the party, but they're not quite full-blown adventurers like yourself. But a sidekick can be created from any creature with a CR or challenge rating of 1/2 or lower. There are 3 types of sidekicks. There are experts, there are spellcasters, and there are warriors. Sidekicks level up with the party, and whatever the average level of the party is will determine the level of the sidekick. So as the sidekick levels up, they gain hit points, they get proficiency bonus increases, and they get ability score increases. So experts are taskmasters. They favor cunning and guile over brawn. Musicians, scouts, burglars are all experts. Spellcasters harness magics in their efforts to aid the party. Oracles, soothsayers, performers, hedge wizards, all of these are really good examples of spellcasters. Warriors are pretty straightforward. They are the melee specialists. However, unlike spellcasters and experts, warriors do not require the stat block of the base creature to have at least one language available. Which means that a warrior sidekick could be a human guard or a bandit, but it could also be a wolf or a weasel.
Yeah.
Just as long as the starting block is of a 1/2 CR or lower, it's a valid candidate.
I think it's very cool. I think the idea that you're filling in maybe a gap in the existing party when you don't have another player to play another character, it's a really nice supplement. It makes a lot of sense, I think, for some people's campaigns.
And not only that, but you can use these sidekick stat blocks to build characters for maybe someone who just wants an easier streamlined character and doesn't want to play a really mechanically difficult class. Or it's a great way to have a beginner or a kid learn how to play the game is by having them play a sidekick character.
There may even be a world where it makes sense to have somebody come in and sort of like a one-off session, play a sidekick to get a feel for it. Maybe he doesn't stick around forever.
Yeah, this book opens up a lot of really cool ways to play with the sidekick options.
I dig it.
One fun little thing we like to do here on Mid-Level Adventurers is go to our tavern corner and discuss what we are imbibing tonight. So Matt, what are you drinking tonight?
I want to start by saying, I think I teased last time that I would have something this week that you would both love and hate.
That is true.
Well, the mood struck me different this time, so I'm going to have to hold off for at least one more episode for that. Sorry, but it is coming. So I switched it up today. I was just feeling different. It's a little sunny down here in Georgia. It almost feels like it's spring, dare I say. So I decided to go with a Berliner Weiss.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm drinking tonight. It's called Athena, and it's by Creature Comforts out of Athens, which I am so sure that I've had more than once, probably.
Yeah, the name sounds familiar.
Famous for the beer that Thor drank in one of the Marvel movies.
Right.
Anyway, so a Berliner Weiss, for people that don't know, it says it right here on the can actually, is a German-style tart wheat ale, which I think sums it up quite nice. If you've never had a Berliner Weiss, the tartness might be a little bit of a shock, but I think it's kind of refreshing, especially on a warmish day. You get the same kind of enjoyment out of it as you might like a lemonade, perhaps. Refreshing, tart, they're like hints of lemon.
Would you equate it to a shandy?
No, not quite like that. And it's very much like a wheat beer. I mean, it very much tastes like a German wheat beer, just with like a little sour tartness. But it's very kind of effervescent and just refreshing. I thought this was kind of fun. They've got a little nickname for it here on the can. They call it the Champagne of the South. It's got 3 little words here that are on the can that are used to describe it, and one of those is ambrosia. So there you go.
Nectar of the gods.
Yeah. And that is kind of Creature Comforts thing. They like to do some like Greek themed, and this one is obviously called Athena. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. How about you? What do you have it tonight?
This week I have returned to Single Cut Beersmiths, and I am drinking their Plain Top Pilsner.
Oh, okay.
I had not found their Pilsner previously, and as we all know, I love a good Pilsner, so I thought I'd give it a shot. And I have not been disappointed.
Sounds like you might have a favorite local brewery now.
Well, it's certainly something that I've been able to get a lot, yeah, and honestly, a lot of their stuff's been really good. I really liked their Kim from a few episodes ago, and this Pilsner is very, very tasty.
I can appreciate that they're putting out a lot of lagers and Pilsners.
Yeah, it's a nice variety that they're making. And this Pilsner is crisp and even and clean, and you can taste the hops. And it has a really nice head, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I opened it up, and it just frothed right up.
Yeah, nice head on a beer is important. It is. I don't know the science behind it, but...
I don't either. I just know that I appreciate it when it's there, and I miss it when it is not.
Yeah.
And this one seems to deliver. So, if you get a chance and you like Pilsner, I would recommend giving this a shot. Well, it sounds like we have some good choices this week.
Yeah. In similar veins, perhaps. I'm really enjoying mine.
And I am mine. So cheers.
Cheers.
And that's what we're imbibing tonight. Another section in this book that they really go into something that I think is important is session zeros. We have talked about session zeros previously on the podcast.
What is a session zero, though, as a reminder?
A session zero are sessions that you hold with your players to talk about and build their characters and answer any questions that they may have about what kind of game you're going to play.
They're nothing official, right?
Right. There's no official you have to have a session zero. But it's a good idea because it allows players to figure out how and why their characters have come together. It also allows the DM and the players to talk about the social contract that is going to exist at the table.
That's a good point.
Now, when I say this, I don't mean everybody has to sign a piece of paper that says, I'm not going to be a dick. This social contract, which includes the DM, pretty much is hey, the DM's not going to cheat, I'm not going to fudge my rolls, and the DM will also allow the players to build their characters and make choices, and the DM will provide respect to them and to the story to enable their adventures. But what should also be made apparent to everyone is what behaviors will not be tolerated at the table.
Mm-hmm.
The section recommends talking about hard and soft limits. Soft limits being topics and thresholds that DMs and players should think twice about crossing, as it may cause anxiety, discomfort, but something that could be worked through. Whereas hard limits are something that should never be crossed. And each person at every table is going to have different limits. And during the session zero is when it can be really helpful and important to talk about those and get everybody to agree on subjects and limits that will not be allowed to influence the game. It's important to make sure everyone who's playing is comfortable. Because you want everybody to have a good time, you don't want to make anyone really uncomfortable, and then it breaks their enjoyment of the game. It's a game, it should be fun.
Absolutely.
And DMs should invite their players to talk to them privately. They may not want to talk about some of their limits in front of everybody else for fear of ridicule or whatever. That doesn't make their limits any less legitimate. They should be respected.
True.
But it's not just in-game behavior that you need to worry about here, it's also out-of-game behavior. Some people don't care if other players I need a D20, and they just grab a D20 from someone else. Some people really do not like other people touching their dice. So it's good to get that kind of stuff figured out. Some people get really grossed out by belching noises. Others might be kind of uncomfortable with vulgarity, or people might get fed up if someone's on their cell phone too much. All these sorts of things should be talked about in a session 0. But that doesn't mean you can't add to or alter these agreements that you make in session 0 as you progress in the game. The point isn't to restrict people's fun and enjoyment, but to instead ensure that everyone at the table is going to have a good time and everyone's limits are going to be respected.
Yeah, well said. There's a lot of stuff there, and I think it's overlooked sometimes because there's never really been anything in writing about it.
That is true.
It's been a practice, but however you treat that session 0 may depend on where you got your information. I think in a digital world where we are playing so many games via the internet, a session 0 can be really crucial because you're not getting that sit down and share time at the table moment. And I think a lot of times too, you have more games being played now that are perhaps with people that are not already close friends in real life. So you might find that it's just a good practice to have to introduce people to each other and sort of get a background on each person, where they're from, some things that make them unique, whatever, because they may be total strangers.
Absolutely. So there's a lot in Tasha's, right? There is a lot in Tasha's.
So much.
It is a massive source book. But what does this source book mean in regards to the player's handbook or the basic rules?
Supplement.
Exactly. That's the word. It is nothing but more options.
Mm-hmm.
If your game only wants to use the player's handbook and the basic rules, that's okay. The important thing to remember is that everything in this book is optional.
Yeah.
There's nothing in this book that this is the new way how we're doing it forever. It's all optional.
I think there's room in here to pick and choose too. At the same table, you may have some people that want to use some options from Tasha's. You may have some that don't. I think that should be up to the DM's discretion. Ultimately, chat with them about it. Don't just show up one day and say, I'm choosing this optional class feature because I just read about it last night. Give them a heads up.
Yeah. And it's possible the DM may pick and choose as well. Your DM, she may allow all of the subclasses in this book to be used, but not the optional features.
True.
All this book does is provide guidelines about how you could open up your gameplay options. I personally really enjoy the resources in the book. I think the options are well presented, and I feel like it is filling a void that the community has been wanting for a while, and now it's officially printed.
Yeah. Well done, Wizards. I think the versatile options are so huge in this, and just the fact you have options. I mean, like we said, you can keep playing things the same and not change a thing at all.
Yeah. If you like Dwarven Fighters, play your Dwarven Fighters.
Yeah, but if you've been yearning to play a half-orc bard who sneaks around, then there you go. You've got something in print now that kind of supports that creative origin.
Absolutely. So let's do a little wrap-up here about Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. I think it provides a lot of great options that have been lacking in D&D, and the community has been calling for them. Between the addition of the Artificer class and the 4 subclasses for that, there are an additional 26 subclasses, 15 new feats, 21 new spells, 46 magical items, and rules for sidekicks. The book is overflowing with fun and interesting features, and all narrated by Tasha herself. My favorite little quip in the book is from the Barbarian chapter and the Path of Wild Magic subclass, and that reads, I don't recommend letting magic take the reins, but I'm not your mom. Live deliciously.
That's honestly, if I had to choose one, that would be mine.
These little quotes are peppered throughout the book, so I highly recommend reading them as you read the book. The art in the book is also amazing, and I think the artist should be recognized.
Yeah.
They are beautiful. My favorite piece is from the Patrons chapter, and it depicts a bunch of wizards at work in the background, while 2 other wizards are relaxing. One's head is in the lap of another, and the caption is just, Wizardly boyfriends relax while their classmates practice magic at an arcane enclave. And what could be more D&D than a game where they take the time to make it clear, even in the artwork, that this game is for everyone and everyone can play.
Absolutely. Jarrod, I don't have any more I can say. That's a great summation. There's a lot in this book, and there's obviously more to check out. I will add, though, if you're looking to get a copy, I will direct you, as always, to D&D Beyond, or pretty much anywhere that you can buy literature.
I would always recommend that you purchase a hard copy book through your friendly local gaming store, especially in the current economic climate. They could really use your support. So go out there, buy a copy of Tasha's if you haven't already. Ignore the big online retailers. Buy from someone local.
Very good advice.
Well, thank you all for hopping into the Cauldron with us this week. We invite you to come back next episode as we do a true deep dive into the best things ever created. Dragons.
Dun, dun, dun.
It will be our first episode dedicated to a single monster, so make sure to come back and check it out. And check out our friend and the composer of all the music used on Mid-Level Adventurers, John D. Ivy, on SoundCloud.com. Make sure to follow us on Facebook at Mid-Level Adventurers and on Twitter and Instagram at MidLVLAdventure.
Please check out our website on Wix at midleveladventurer.wixsite.com. And feel free to email us at midleveladventurers@gmail.com. And watch Jarrod and I on Newly Forged Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/newlyforged. You can catch up on previous episodes of Newly Forged on our YouTube channel, so make sure to stop on by and give us a like, comment, and subscribe. That's NUULIFORGED.
And as always, I'm Jarrod Jehoda.
And I'm Matt Morris.
Until then, mind the traps and keep adventuring.